So one devotee named Dravida, who later became Panchadravida Swami, approached Srila Prabhupada on the veranda in Calcutta. And he said that, you know, in the early days, all the devotees could have personal relationships with you, but now ISKCON has become so big. Srila Prabhupada replied, ISKCON may be big, but I'm still small. So then Dravida said, but, you know, then devotees could just come and talk to you. Prabhupada said, are you not talking to me now? So Dravida was leading up to the point that he wanted to leave ISKCON. Still be a devotee, but outside ISKCON. He said, well, Srila Prabhupada, still, would it be all right if I left ISKCON and practiced Krishna consciousness outside? Srila Prabhupada said yes. So Dravida said, so I have your blessings to move outside? Prabhupada said, how can I give you my blessings to do something I don't want you to do?
And then I asked, we learned that dinosaurs once ruled the earth. Is that true? So he said, how could they rule? They have no intelligence. So he'd make the most complicated philosophical understandings very clear and simple. In fact, once a devotee asked him, how is it that you make this complicated philosophy so simple and clear? So he said, because it is simple. God is great, you are not great, therefore you are not God, and you should surrender to God.
So I was with Srila Prabhupada, and we were living in Srila Prabhupada's quarters on the 6th floor of the tower. And one of my senior god brothers one day was a little annoyed with me, and he started to chastise me very heavily. And those days I used to be quite sensitive, you know, I was feeling really bad that he chastised me. Then I went to Srila Prabhupada on some, you know, I had to do something. So when I went to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada just on his own, he just started to tell me, you see, the sign of one's advancement, the sign of one's spiritual advancement is not in the big position one has. The real sign of advancement is how humble and how tolerant one has become. And just that instruction, you know, like took away all the, you know, the heaviness from the heart. And I just remembered. And that instruction I often remember, that the sign of our advancement is not in our position, but in how humble and how tolerant we have become.
When Srila Prabhupada came to Madras, I was cultivating the Chief Justice in the High Court, and he was really taking interest in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada was really encouraging me. So almost every day I would meet the Chief Justice, and then I would tell Srila Prabhupada what he said, what I said, what he said, and so on. So Srila Prabhupada explained that in Madras there's a big conflict between the Brahmins and the non-Brahmins. And he said, I think that the Chief Justice is non-Brahmin. But there's a big conflict. So you tell him that we can make anyone into a Brahmin. He just has to follow our principles. And we can make anyone into a Brahmin and the whole problem will be solved. So finally the Chief Justice came to the point where he wanted to be initiated. And, but the only thing was he couldn't give up tea. So I told Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said, well, for a big man we can make a little exception. Anyway, at the end of Srila Prabhupada's stay, the Chief Justice arranged a big program in a grounds. And he invited all the judges of Madras and all the advocates. And Srila Prabhupada spoke wonderfully. And in the talk he told about the Goswamis, how highly placed they were in the government and in society, and how they left everything to join the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was appealing to them to join us. After the lecture in the Pandal, or not in the Pandal, but in the grounds, we went to the Chief Justice's house, and he had a silver statue, small silver statue of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada engaged little Saraswati, Shamsundar Malati's daughter, who was just a few years old, to demonstrate a very important lesson in Krishna consciousness. So he held the little statue in front of Saraswati. And then he hid it behind his back. And she became bewildered. And Srila Prabhupada said, Saraswati, where's Krishna? And she didn't know. She began looking this way, that way, everywhere. She couldn't find Krishna. Again, Prabhupada said, Saraswati, where's Krishna? And she became even more anxious. Where's Krishna? Looking here and there. Then finally, one of the devotees gave the hint, Saraswati, who has Krishna? Then her eyes lit up in recognition. Oh, Prabhupada has Krishna. Then she looked towards Prabhupada, and Prabhupada very slowly and carefully brought the deity of Krishna out from behind his back and held it in front of her. Prabhupada has Krishna. Then Srila Prabhupada said that this is the mood of the Goswamis, that they were always anxious. Where is Krishna? Not that, oh, now I've seen Krishna, now my business is finished. So he continued the theme of the Goswamis. And in the lecture he was quoting how Tyaktva Turna Mashesha Mandala Patishadi Sada Tuchavat, how he kicked off all aristocratic association to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and work for the welfare of others. And then he continued on the same theme, going to the last verse and using little Saraswati. So he really knew how to reciprocate with everyone and how to satisfy everyone, simultaneously, like a 3-year-old child and a 50-year-old high court justice.
Once, this was in '69, Arundhati was a new devotee then in Chai, so she asked me to ask him if he heard Krishna's flute, if he could hear Krishna's flute. So I asked him, and first he said, why not? But then, in order to get the attention off of himself, he said, he quoted the Sad Goswami Astakam, how the 6 Goswamis are serving Radha and Krishna by the trees that have jewels at their roots. He said a pure devotee can always hear Krishna's flute. So in that way he answered that he did, but he got the attention off of himself.